Good morning, Little Masters, and welcome back to today's Tolkien Times. I'm the Man of the West, also from the Prancing Pony podcast, and while we're taking a break from our First Age Friday this series in the Lay of Lathian so that we can go back to Fandom Fridays, I really wanted to continue going with our time in Aldarion and Arendis, so let's get going with Week 51's Second Age Saturday. We'll pick up where we left off at the end of Week 50, after King Meneldur read the letter from King Gil-galad. Let's join in as he thinks through what to do. When the Valar gave to us the land of gift, they did not make us their vicegerents. We were given the kingdom of Númenor, not of the world. They are the lords. Here we were to put away hatred and war, for war was ended, and Morgoth thrust forth from Arda. So I deemed, and so was taught. Yet if the world grows again dark, the lords must know, and they have sent me no sign. Unless this be the sign, what then? Our fathers were rewarded for the aid they gave in the defeat of the Great Shadow. Shall their sons stand aloof if evil finds a new head? I am in too great doubt to rule. To prepare or let be? To prepare for war, which is yet only guessed. Train craftsmen and tillers in the midst of peace for blood spilling and battle. Put iron in the hands of greedy captains who will love only conquest and count the slain as their glory? Will they say to Eru, at least your enemies were amongst them? Or to fold hands while friends die unjustly? Let men live in blind peace until the ravisher is at the gate. What then will they do? Match naked hands against iron and die in vain? Or flee, leaving the cries of women behind them? Will they say to Eru, at least I spilled no blood? When either way may lead to evil, of what worth is choice? Let the Valar rule under Eru. I will resign the scepter to Aldarion. Yet that also is a choice, for I know well which road he will take. Unless Arendis... Then Meneldur's thought turned in disquiet to Arendis in Emerie. But there is little hope there, if it should be called hope. He will not bend in such grave matters. I know her choice, even were she to listen long enough to understand, for her heart has no wings beyond Númenor, and she has no guess of the cost. If her choice should lead to death in her own time, she would die bravely. But what will she do with life and other wills? The Valar themselves, even as I, must wait to discover. Aldarion came back to Romenna on the fourth day after Hirolande had returned to Haven. He was way-stained and weary, and he went at once to Eambar, upon which he now intended to dwell. By that time, as he found to his embitterment, many tongues were already wagging in the city. On the next day, he gathered men in Romenna and brought them to Armenelos. There he bade some fell all the trees, save one, in his garden, and take them to the shipyards. Others he commanded to raze his house to the ground. The white elven tree alone he spared, and when the woodcutters were gone, he looked at it, standing amid the desolation, and he saw for the first time that it was in itself beautiful. In its slow elven growth it was yet but 12 feet high, straight, slender, youthful, now budded with its winter flowers upon upheld branches pointing to the sky. It recalled to him his daughter, and he said, I will call you also Ancalame. May you and she stand so in long life, unbent by wind or will, and unclipped. On the third day after his return from Emerie, Aldarion sought the king. Tar Meneldur sat still in his chair and waited. Looking at his son, he was afraid, for Aldarion was changed. His face was become gray, cold and hostile, as the sea when the sun is suddenly veiled in dull cloud. Standing before his father, he spoke slowly with tone of contempt rather than of wrath. What part you have played in this you yourself know best, he said. But a king should consider how much a man will endure, though he be a subject, even his son. If you would shackle me to this island, then you choose your chain ill. I have now neither wife nor love of this land left. I will go from this misenchanted isle of daydreams where women in their insolence would have men cringe. I will use my days to some purpose elsewhere where I am not scorned, more welcome and honor. Another heir you may find more fit for a house servant. Of my inheritance I demand only this, the ship Hirolande, and as many men as it will hold. My daughter I would take also were she older, but I will commend her to my mother. Unless you dote upon sheep, you will not hinder this, and will not suffer the child to be stunted, reared among mute women in cold insolence and contempt of her kin. She is of the line of Elros, and no other descendant will you have through your son. I have done. I will go now about business more profitable. Ooh. Hard said. As much as I give Aldarion a hard time for, well, a lot, I like the way at the beginning of this passage that his dad thinks things through, and yet he finds himself in a real catch-22, a real conundrum. The Valar haven't sent me a sign, but maybe this letter's a sign. Then he asks a very important question. Can we, the descendants of the Edain who joined with the Eldar to defeat Morgoth, can we stand aside while evil rises? But then he has to look at the practical effects of that. Do I take civilians in peace and turn their lives upside down, making them soldiers, only have greedy captains say, well, at least your enemies were amongst the slain? Or do I sit back and do nothing until it's too late and they say to Eru, well, at least I didn't kill anyone? He sees this as a no-win situation. And so he resolves to give the scepter to Aldarion early. This decision is above his pay grade. And yet, as a result of that, this is where I stop admiring him so much. Because he knows exactly what Aldarion will decide. He says as much, for I know well which road he will take. So resigning the scepter is the same as making a decision to prepare for war. But rather than accept that as his own choice, he decides to step away and let somebody else make the choice and take the responsibility. I mean, I get it. The guy's in a bad situation. And from where he stands, there's no winning. But I would rather see him do it himself than pass it on to Aldarion. But speaking of Aldarion, we get that moment with the white tree where he sees a similarity between it and his daughter, so much so that he names the tree on Kalame. But then we get that really brutal meeting with his father. It is not a pleasant one. That line, I have neither wife nor love of this land left. He's taking his ball and leaving. Like, look, you can have my daughter. And the last thing he wants is for her to be raised by Arendis. But I am done, he says. It's hard stuff to read, and I'm sure it was hard stuff for Meneldur to hear. For now, though, that does it for this week's Second Age Saturday. Thank you for joining me, and be sure to come back next week as King Meneldur makes a big decision. Please visit patreon.com/TolkienTimes to learn how you can support the show, get an ad-free feed, join my content council, get a bonus episode every week like today. Instead of getting just this one, you'd get two. And please, if you're watching this on YouTube, like and subscribe. Follow or subscribe in your podcast apps, and follow @TolkienTimes on social media. Finally, as Faramir says, go with the goodwill of all good men.